We're two different groups in a room together learning about each other. Whenever you learn about somebody, you incrementally build an opportunity to build respect. Through building respect, you actually are building trust as well. So I think this event is going to go a long way in that some people have already removed their suits and jackets, and others have already learned how to speak some language of the academics.
The whole concept of being inquisitive and being curious about the world around us has always been like that. So I think in terms of how this can actually inform and develop for us is actually putting forward our worldview in a way that people understand what needs to be done, and research is only a part of that. And how do we actually address it in the context of our own worldview, our own values, our own processes, and our own knowledge.
This is a landmark forum that we're having here. And to presume to know the answers to where the research should be focused at this particular point, I think would be a mistake. The kinds of global issues we've already heard about, and so I can speak confidently about that, and that is relationship to land, notion of health and differing notions of health being tied to wellness as opposed to discrete interventions that we might often think of as a discrete research program that one would want to engage in. A sense of the interrelatedness of people, attitudes, the land, thinking of life and relationships as an ecology rather than as discrete units.
I find this research forum is going to really help the relationship between the First Nations Health Authority and the Interior First Nations communities that have come to it, to help identify the gaps that we need to look at in gathering data. So I find that's really good, but it's also educating the people that are at the forum of the kind of work that we need to do and how we need to do it together.
That's the theme of the entire gathering, is we have to start thinking in different ways and move away from this traditional Western idea of what research is and what knowledge is and what information is.
The openness to partnership and collaboration, the fact that First Nations want to drive their own research, the passion that's there to share knowledge and work with the universities, with First Nations Health Authority, all of this is very inspiring to me.
It's really about how do we continue to focus on the strengths of our people versus the weaknesses. What we lack and forget to understand, we've been here for thousands of years. Our people are very resilient. Why is that? What are those things, those factors that make us so resilient, and why are we still here? Why is it that our languages are coming back? Why is it we have all those strengths? And so rather than focusing on what's wrong, we need to start focusing on what's right.
Rethinking research. And we've learned from this morning already that the traditional academic ways of approaching research are sufficient for some audiences, but they're not sufficient for the plan that Indigenous peoples are speaking of, that comes from the communities themselves. And so this is something of a creative hot point for researchers, for communities to come together, to find new ways of defining and acting within research so that there will be a strengthening of Indigenous communities on Indigenous communities' terms.
Self-determination, it's framed in the sense of what do we have to do in terms of being self-determining? How do we get there? But the other reflection of that is the recognition of your self-determination. We have the answers, but we're not being heard by institutions, we're not being heard by academics. And so that really fosters self-determination if there's genuine acknowledgement of the capacity, of what's important to your people.
Presently, with the data that's been gathered by the government right now, they take it, we don't know where that data goes to, where that information goes to. Sometimes some of that data just sits on a shelf and a lot of money goes into it, and then it sits there and we don't know as First Nations sometimes all the resources that's been put into it, and then it's been shelved. So what I see now, that if we start to gather our own data, then we'd be able to say where that data goes to, how it will be used, and and what we're going to do with that data.
How can we help communities to build up their capacity in terms of training researchers and being able to access information?
To be able to move forward with a partner, we need to be able to understand each other. And research is very important because it assists each party in understanding and learning and getting a better understanding of where both parties are coming from.
When I see AANDC, meaning Aboriginal Affairs, Northern Development Canada, Health Canada, First Nation Health Authority, and respective leaders part of in their research or in their divisions showing up, talk about collaboration and how we work together.
In order to get our work done, we have to be able to build partnerships and collaborate with institutions like TRU, with the Interior Health Authority, even with the First Nations Health Authority. And I think this process here is really about building that relationship and really identifying for each other, like what are some of those gaps and what do we need to actually work on? Because if you're not in the same room having a dialogue, how can you build a partnership?
We need to have some more of these sorts of gatherings to really lay out what our expectations of each other are and what some of our needs are.
Research is all about relationships. It's all about building relationships.
Research has like a really important role in strengthening our traditional knowledge systems because it reinforces our identities. I think that community-based Indigenous research is really about knowing yourself and knowing the place you come from and your connections to the land and place and your language and all of those things, the interconnectedness of everything.
Community guiding the research is really nation building, and I think it was Gwen Phillip or one of the speakers in there got to nation building, and once we were guiding our research and identifying ourselves what the problems are, then we can do nation building, which is really where we want to be, rather than outside people identifying our problems and solutions. So the transfer of social power.
Determining our research priorities, right? Communities being different, regional needs being different, provinces, federal in terms of research. So I think there's, bringing those research priorities together and start converging on what might be needed.
There's a lot of information that needs to be collected within our communities that could very well pave the way to how we govern ourselves and how we manage our lands and our resources.
The capacity building we end up doing is often for non-Indigenous, non-community-based organizations who, are at that blue sky level, getting this idea, but they're not on the ground walking. And that's where the disparate, the disconnection is between how do you actually stay on the ground, grounded, doing this kind of stuff, if you have no sort of connection or understanding of what that relationship to the blue sky is.
There are those of us going to school, and we're going to school and we are remembering who we are and where we come from, but we're going to help be those mediators and those interpreters and advocates so that we can, what that one presenter said, share with the broader community what it is our community is seeing.
I look at research over the last 200 years, I look at research over the last 20 years, especially in this province, and it hasn't done anything. All it's done is asserted non-Indigenous ideals and ideologies upon us, and it's not working. That's why we have to have these gatherings.
Well, to have a relationship, you need to actually come together, and that's the first thing that this incredible historical forum has done, is to bring people together in ways that haven't happened before, and with an intention to do things in research in ways that haven't happened before as well. So I think that's the first profound and important outcome of this gathering. The second, I think, is something of a message to universities themselves, and that is that the distance from the reserve to the university is the same as the distance from the university to the reserve. And for many years we've had Indigenous peoples approaching universities for those research skills, expertise that are offered within the university. This gathering is actually a time where Thompson Rivers University is saying we will recognise the equal distance between the two, and we will find a way to work in partnership.
One of the things that we're looking for from this is how to improve, how to understand, and how to do the best job possible for our First Nations people.
And I think that's what we have to begin to look at, because those things are going to make the most impact for our people, is focusing on their strengths as a people, and their strengths as a family, and our strengths as nations.
We are already on the road to better relationships.